In a cramped Harvard dorm room, a 19-year-old sat cross-legged on the floor, balancing a glowing laptop on his knees and scrolling through lines of PHP like they were diary entries. He wasn't trying to start a corporation. He wanted to answer a timeless student question: who's dating whom and why wasn't he invited? The site he launched that sleepless night, first called the Facebook, spread through campus corridors faster than gossip itself. Within days, it became the digital water cooler. Within weeks, it leapt to other universities. Within months, venture capitalists were pounding on a door still plastered with pizza coupons. Classmates posted photos, inside jokes, relationship statuses, each click adding a brick to an invisible empire. No policy committee, no ethics board, not even a full-time lawyer oversaw the experiment. Code shipped, servers crashed, users begged for more, and a blueprint for 21st century communication hardened before anyone grasped its true cost. 2 years later, the fledgling network occupied a loft above a Palo Alto Chinese restaurant where the carpet smelled of soy sauce and caffeine. New recruits napped under their desks, fueled by microwaved burritos and a slogan graffitied on every whiteboard: "Move fast and break things." Breaking things wasn't a metaphor. Engineers pushed code straight to the live site, then sprinted to patch bugs that millions discovered in real time. Growth, not polish, ruled every meeting. Daily active user graphs were taped to bathroom mirrors so no one missed the numbers climbing while brushing their teeth. Features that failed to accelerate signups were buried. Anything that lit the chart neon green earned champagne and midnight fireworks. The ethos was intoxicating. How else could a 20-something change the way millions communicated before lunch? Yet beneath the bravado lurked a blind spot. Nobody paused long enough to ask what exactly they were breaking. To transform popularity into revenue, the company poached a polished executive from a search engine giant and handed her the keys to its chaotic engine room. She arrived with spreadsheets, advertiser contacts, and an almost missionary faith in precision targeting. If a local pizza shop could reach hungry college students at 11 p.m., Fortune 500 brands could do likewise at national scale, and the cash would pour in. Under her watch, the dashboards evolved into kaleidoscopic tapestries of demographic slices: age, political leaning, romantic status, even life events like engagements or new babies. Marketers no longer bought billboards. They bought moods and moments measured in milliseconds. Every like, scroll, and tap became a data point fed into algorithms learning to anticipate each user's next impulse. Its genius lay in invisibility. People felt in control while the machine quietly rearranged their attention. Data and dollars reinforced each other like twin pistons in an endlessly revving engine. The more users shared photos, political rants, midnight confessions, or toddler videos, the more accurately the feed guessed what would make them laugh, cry, or rage. Strong emotion kept eyes locked. Locked eyes created more ad slots. Sold slots swelled profits. Profits hired engineers to refine prediction. Around that flywheel, leadership wrapped a mission statement fit for a commencement speech, making the world more open and connected. Inside headquarters, the phrase became spiritual armor, deflecting doubts whenever privacy advocates or weary moderators raised red flags. Philosophical debates were postponed until after the next sprint, always one release cycle away. To outsiders, the platform looked like harmless colored icons. Inside, feverish calculation hummed behind the glass. By 2014, the feed had been tweaked so often that even its creators struggled to explain why certain posts exploded while others vanished. One truth, however, was unmistakable. Outrage held attention longer than delight, and fear held it longest of all. The ranking code, indifferent to morality, began tilting the public square toward the loudest, most polarizing voices. In Southeast Asia, incendiary rumors about a persecuted minority cascaded through timelines faster than human moderators could translate them, leaving real-world violence in their wake. In the United States, fabricated stories about a presidential candidate's health reached millions before a single fact-checker sipped morning coffee. Engineers who flagged the pattern were told to trust the data and remember the connective mission. The contradiction was subtle yet staggering. Connecting people sometimes meant turning them against one another. The 2016 U.S. presidential race hurled that contradiction into global headlines. Foreign operatives posing as grassroots activists bought divisive ads for pennies, micro-targeting swing state voters with messages no television station would ever air. Executives first dismissed outside warnings, then panicked when journalists uncovered evidence in plain sight. Congressional hearings loomed, share prices wobbled, and public trust splintered. Crisis teams convened in glass-walled war rooms glowing red with alarm dashboards. Press releases acknowledged missteps and promised integrity as the top priority. Yet the code base that prized engagement remained largely untouched. Taming it risked shrinking revenue. Engineers whispered about cultural whiplash: slow the spread of lies, but keep the growth curve climbing. The spark became a blaze when a whistleblower exposed how a political consulting firm siphoned data from tens of millions of profiles to craft psychological voter models. Overnight hashtags urging deletion trended worldwide. Regulators threatened staggering fines, and news anchors spoke of broken social contracts. Users who had traded photos for convenience felt betrayed, realizing the platform hadn't just stored their memories, it had weaponized them. Inside, teams drew up apology roadmaps, privacy overhauls, and new default settings. Skeptics noted a loophole the size of a billboard. Posts that triggered anger or envy still earned algorithmic gold stars. Guardrails rose, but the highway stayed the same. A philosophical rift yawned wide within the workforce. One faction demanded radical transparency and even a feature freeze until safety caught up. Another, steeped in hacker bravado, insisted the mission outweighed turbulence and that critics misunderstood the good intentions at play. Leadership, unwilling to sacrifice momentum, chose incrementalism. Live streaming launched an irresistible tool for citizen journalism that also broadcast murders and suicides in real time. Moderators, already traumatized by graphic reviews, begged for smarter filters and mental health aid. The gap between glossy marketing videos and the bloody pixels on reviewers' screens widened by the week. The tipping point arrived when internal slides leaked showing company scientists had measured the platform's negative impact on teen self-esteem, yet kept the findings quiet. Lawmakers waved printouts during hearings, parents demanded accountability, and hashtags calling for regulation-dominated timelines. Executives spoke of nuanced data, but ducked why the research hadn't triggered urgent changes. The revelation cemented a narrative that profit eclipsed ethics. Antitrust chatter grew louder, and employees once proud of company swag now hid logos on public transit. Scandal after scandal couldn't stop the daily user counter from climbing, revealing a paradox of modern life. The more people distrusted the platform, the more they needed it. Birthday invitations, wildfire evacuation maps, neighborhood yard sale listings all lived behind its blue and white walls. Governments that condemned the company on prime time still used its pages for health alerts. That dependence granted unprecedented leverage, allowing it to negotiate on its own terms with publishers and nation-states alike. Society's challenge was no longer surviving the company's mistakes, but imagining life without its connective tissue. During the turbulent 2020 election cycle, that leverage met its harshest test. A sitting president questioned ballot integrity and rallied supporters through the platform's megaphone. Policy teams argued in Slack until dawn. Delete the posts and face censorship outrage, or leave them up and risk violence. They settled on warning label steps, pleasing no one. On January 6th, extremists livestreamed their march on the Capitol, broadcasting shattered windows to millions in real time. Hours later, high-profile accounts were suspended and emergency bans issued. Critics said the move came too late. Insiders quietly admitted no one had designed a kill switch for democracy. In the aftermath, engineers received a mandate to pivot the feed toward meaningful social interactions. The phrase sounded wholesome, but measuring meaning proved slippery. The update prioritized comments and shares among friends, unintentionally elevating heated political spats at family dinner tables, while downranking professional journalism. Engagement rose, misinformation adapted, and the cycle repeated. Product managers joked that every fix sprouted 2 new bugs, like a digital hydra. Beneath the humor lay a grim truth. No interface tweak could redeem a business model devoted to harvesting attention. Public scrutiny intensified when the chief executive faced lawmakers whose average age exceeded the company's. Their televised exchange revealed a gulf between analog metaphors about town squares and jargon-laden answers about machine learning. Viewers heard scripted concessions, awkward silences, and unresolved questions about responsibility. Cameras clicked, markets shrugged, and engineers returned to shipping code, underscoring a troubling reality. Elected officials charged with oversight barely grasped the system's mechanics. Back inside headquarters, the policy unit wrestled with edge cases that mocked universal rules. A cartoon frog might be harmless satire in one culture, extremist propaganda in another. A reclaimed slur could empower or degrade depending on who posted it. Automated filters trained mostly on English stumbled over dialects spoken by millions. Each mistake carried stakes, silencing dissidents on one end, enabling threats on the other. Scale billions of posts in 90 languages made perfection impossible, yet perfection was what society increasingly demanded. Civil rights groups commissioned independent audits. Scholars clamored for algorithmic transparency, and former employees penned op-eds about ignored alarms. Proposals ranged from opening ranking code to academic scrutiny to breaking up the company's constellation of apps. Leadership countered with glossy transparency reports, heavy on numbers, but light on raw data, like showing a scoreboard without revealing the playbook. Lobbying budgets ballooned, ensuring every regulatory bill passed through a gauntlet of well-briefed representatives. In a splashy keynote delivered via photorealistic avatar, the company rebranded itself Meta, unveiling a grand vision of shared virtual worlds accessed through headsets. The pivot dazzled some investors and perplexed others who wondered whether unresolved newsfeed harms would simply migrate into 3 dimensions. Skeptical lawmakers quipped that changing your name doesn't change your nature. Employees balanced excitement for futuristic projects against a nagging sense of unfinished business on the old platform. Outside the glass campus, users grew savvier. Some deactivated accounts and flocked to smaller apps. Others installed extensions to declutter feeds. Many stayed but adopted new habits, double-checking sensational claims and resisting the reflexive share. Schools added digital literacy units, teaching students to interrogate sources. The conversation shifted from whether social media was good or bad to how we might shape it responsibly. The platform, once hailed as a miracle, now resembled a public utility demanding constant upkeep. The larger takeaway is stark. Technology may be neutral in theory, but algorithms optimized for attention reorder society in distinctly non-neutral ways. When the prime directive is to maximize time spent, every other value becomes negotiable. Tools built for friendship can morph into machinery of division unless guided by moral guardrails. Leadership charisma and campus slogans cannot replace democratic oversight. Just as food and drug companies face inspections, digital platforms that mediate civic life must expect audits of both data practices and power structures. For everyday viewers, absorbing this saga empowerment starts with awareness. Realize the feed curating your reality is powered by models trained on billions of behavioral crumbs, many of them yours. Ask who profits when a post stokes anger versus curiosity or a video lures you past bedtime. Support public interest journalism, digital rights groups, and regulations aligning economic incentives with social good. Above all, cultivate the habit of pausing before sharing. A moment of deliberation is the simplest force multiplier against manipulation. In the end, the company at the heart of this story remains both indispensable and imperfect, a mirror reflecting our collective hopes and fears. Whether it evolves into a responsible steward of global conversation or becomes a cautionary monument to hubris will hinge on pressure from users, courage from insiders, and wisdom from policymakers. The next chapter is unwritten, and we, not just engineers in California, hold the pen.